Bitcoin's a different animal. It's a lot harder. One, it's not as old. Two, the suppression mechanisms aren't as developed. And three, one of the things that Bitcoin can do that gold never has done, Bitcoin can go up 6x in 6 months. Bitcoin to trade like the wild animal it trades at. And so what I think few people understand is how when this thing does hit, when this next wave does hit, it's not going to 140, guys. It's going to 250 or 300 or 350.
Lepard doesn't hedge when asked whether price suppression in gold and silver is ending. His answer is direct. Yes. Why? Because the game only works as long as people accept paper claims instead of demanding the real thing. And increasingly, they don't. He describes the moment we're in as one where we can see the man behind the curtain. Investors no longer believe the narratives. They no longer trust that a derivative contract is equivalent to physical metal. The response is simple. Give me the gold. Before we go on, just a quick reminder. Liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and commenting helps this reach more people who care about Bitcoin and macro trends. Appreciate the support.
Do you think that suppression is ending?
I do.
And also, on the second question being, how do we avoid that for Bitcoin?
That's a great question. Yeah. So yes, I do think it's ending because people are demanding the physical, and it's, you're at the stage where that we can see the man behind the curtain and we don't believe him. So it's like, give me the gold. So yes, I think to answer your first question, yes, I think it's happening for gold. Bitcoin thing is interesting. There is paper Bitcoin. I mean, if you go to the Binance Perpetual Futures, it has grown a lot. You can go and you can buy paper Bitcoin, and somebody can sell you paper Bitcoin, and you've got to put a contract on the Bitcoin price, and no Bitcoin ever, it was demand that you had, but no Bitcoin ever got purchased. So and that market has grown a lot. James Checkmate, one of your country mates, has done a really good job of this. He's got some great charts. You got to subscribe to a service to get them, but we do. And that whole market has grown quite a bit. I've often said that they had 50 years to perfect the gold manipulation scheme. And, they had Cayman Islands entities, they had central banks that owned it, they had the BIS, they had all these different things. Bitcoin's a different animal. It's a lot harder. One, it's not as old. Two, the suppression mechanisms aren't as developed. And three, one of the things that Bitcoin can do that gold never has done, Bitcoin can go up 6x in 6 months, right? And so, when they had a problem with gold, a bad year for them in gold was to go up 20 or 30%. Well, they'd sell into it, create a narrative, drive it back down. And even if they needed to print the money to cover the 20 or 30%, that wasn't a lot of money on a relative to keeping the whole system going basis. When you're short something and it goes up 6x, that's a come to Jesus moment, right? I mean, so if you're suppressing it with paper Bitcoin and the price does that. In fact, that's part of what drives it to go up to 6x is the fact that, when we break through this 26, you're going to see people scramble that are on the wrong side of that trade. I mean, there's a big part of Wall Street that said, they had a pair trade where they're long the triple Qs and short Bitcoin. And that pair trade has actually worked because the triple Qs have hung in there and Bitcoin has failed. I think it's a stupid trade because I think the triple Qs are overvalued. I think Bitcoin is undervalued. But as long as it works until, they get too far out over their skis and then it reverses. And that's what causes Bitcoin to trade like the wild animal it trades at. And so what I think few people understand is how when this thing does hit, when this next wave does hit, it's not going to 140, guys. It's going to 250 or 300 or 350. Because there will be so much, there'll be two things happening. There'll be all the shorts who have to cover, or else they're going to get their faces ripped off. And then there'll be a whole new category of long degens who'll come in and who'll lever it and go long it, right? And that's what'll shove it to 400. And then from 400, by the way, it'll correct back to 150. But it's the nature of a speculative, asset that's being adopted. This is, if you go look at a very long-term price chart of Amazon, which is a similar network-based business, it had multiple, had one 90% correction, had multiple 60, 70, a lot of 40, 50% corrections. Either it's going to take over the world or it's going to die. And right now, Bitcoin's in the, right now we're kind of hearing, it's not, I just saw a tweet this morning from a gold guy. Well, not really looking like digital gold, is it? And I was just kind of like, you wait, okay. Just wait. You just relax. It's not a straight line, but I'll take the other side of that bet, and in 2 years we'll see who looks right. We had to have the ETF. We had to have corporate adoption. We had to have nation state adoption, sovereign wealth fund adoption, and all of those things had to happen, or this asset wouldn't become what we thought it was going to become. So they're all net good. I mean, as you know, I'm a real self-sovereignty nut, and I think having control of your coins is critical. But that for people who don't want to do that or can't do that, the 6102 risk, I don't view it as being that large yet. I mean, I think it's one of those things we got to watch. How dystopian does our government get? I mean, let's map it out. So let's say it's now 2028, and sadly, red team loses, blue team wins. And we've got, I don't know, Stephanie Kelton's the Treasury Secretary, and the narrative develops that this great Keynesian monetary system that we've had going for all these years, that's being ruined by these gold and silver and Bitcoin people. And we need to tax that shit at 90%. In fact, we need to go further than that. We need to just seize it, because they're ruining this country. They're ruining the financial system. And so we're going to seize it. And here you go. Here's your cash. Send us your Bitcoin. Well, if you're in an ETF, Fidelity and BlackRock, and they're going to comply with the law and send the Bitcoin in and give you the cash. The cash will buy less the next day, but that's just the way it's going to go down. Same is true with the gold and silver. So, and that's one of the possibilities. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I sincerely feel like we got to make a lot of, and by the way, the other thing that's going to happen with absolute certainty, if you study history, is taxes are going to go up. I mean, we've been lucky to have such a low tax rate environment. I mean, you got to remember when Reagan came in 80, top marginal tax rate in the United States was like 70%. Right? I mean, there's been, and with all this wealth inequality, I mean, you think a blue team in 2028 isn't going to jack taxes on everybody? Of course they are. It's going to be horrible. Which is also another reason why, and I'm not suggesting anybody don't pay their taxes or cheat or any of that kind of crap. I'm just saying that if you own money that's got no counterparty in your own possession, and you lose it in a boating accident, I don't know how they're going to tax it. I mean, it's good luck with that, right? So. It's a real consideration.
Lepard is a strong believer in self-sovereignty. Owning your own assets without counterparty risk is core to his philosophy. But he acknowledges that ETFs serve a purpose. For many investors, self-custody is impractical. And while ETF ownership introduces risk, Lepard doesn't believe confiscation, the so-called 6102 risk, is imminent. Still, he outlines a scenario investors must understand. If a future government decides that gold, silver, and Bitcoin threaten the system, ETFs will comply with the law. Assets will be seized. Investors will receive cash, depreciating cash.
Look, my fund's up a lot. I've got investors saying, God, we've got all these profits. Should we take them? And I'm like, yeah, let's take a little bit. And we actually distributed 10% of the fund this year to our investors. Just said, yeah, let's, it's prudent in case we're wrong to take a little bit of the profit off the table. But no, I think that, this is a case of we're in early days of this kind of a problem. Unless we see sudden, and when I say this, people always chuckle because it's not like, but if we see sudden responsible behavior out of the United States government, balanced budget, etc., that, it's not, stranger things have happened, right? I mean, if they started behaving in a responsible fashion, then we'd have to reevaluate our thesis. But I see them going the other way. Like I say, Trump said, I was shocked when he said it. He said, our defense budget's about just under $1 trillion. And he said, we should take it to 1.5. I'm like, sir, where the hell is that going to come from? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's nuts. But look, I've got my eyes open. I mean, I've been burnt before, and I don't want to, I'm not believing my own bullshit here. I mean, if there's evidence and the price starts to show me that we're wrong, then I'll react to that. But it feels to me like, we are, I mean, I know a lot of people, I have investors, I've talked to people, and I mean, in my cohort, and I know a lot of wealthy people, most of whom don't own gold or silver or Bitcoin, they own stocks. And they're all talking about it, and they're just like, God damn, Larry, I'm just too late. And I'm like, nah, you're really not, as you and I both know and agree. I mean, Bitcoin will be at 1 million someday, and then some higher number than that. And I think gold 10,000 is very doable. So buying it at 4 is not nuts. I mean, 4.5.
I could 100% see them taxing Bitcoin at an insane rate.
Absolutely.
And using us as like scapegoats for the system.
Oh, absolutely. Those damn sound money people. Jesus Christ. Look at what they've done to our beautiful.
How dare they want to save their money?
Yeah, exactly. I can't believe that they pulled this off, right? And so, yeah, it's you really are seeing these camps dividing, between the socialist, communist side of the world and those of us who believe in liberty and freedom and all the things that are in the Constitution. And, we've got to fight like hell to make sure that our side wins, and I think our side will win. It'll be interesting to see. In general, the history of the Fed has been that the chairman kind of pushes whatever the direction is, and he beats everybody else into accepting his decisions. I mean, that's kind of behind the scenes what occurs. But as a practical matter, they actually really can vote and do vote. And so, I don't think I've ever been, and occasionally they'll have a few dissents, but, it's never like gets down to a split vote where one person swings it. It could become a very, very political organization. And Trump has made it very clear that he wants to get as many seats, and he wants people who see it the way he sees it, and he wants lower interest rates. And so, I think you got to believe he's going to kind of get them. I don't know how far, how much, how quick, but I think he's going to get them. And honestly, you kind of need them. I mean, if you look at all the budget deficit, I mean, the interest expense is about $1.2 trillion at the current run rate. I mean, if interest rates go up, I mean, it gets worse, right? I mean, that's your death spiral. And so, but if you could take the average interest rate down to 1.5%, now that would seriously help in terms of balancing the budget, right? Now, it would also create massive growth in M2, which is inflationary. So, pick your poison, right? But I think, this administration, I mean, it's interesting to me. I mean, another thing we haven't talked about the Supreme Court, right? Because the Supreme Court's going to rule on these tariffs. I mean, and it's become very clear. I read the journal, I read everything very carefully. It's become very clear to me that, the court wants to say, no, these tariffs really should be part of Congress, not the executive branch. But Trump has drawn it so, he said, well, how are we going to give the money back? And it's a national security. I mean, everything's being framed in terms of existential national security, fighting China, winning the overall war, for maintaining, quote unquote, our empire, our position in the world. And in that, if you use that argument, it's kind of like, what's the counter argument? You can do anything, right? And so, I mean, if they say, look, this is an existential threat, the budget's going to blow up the country, we got to take interest rates down, fine. Well, then the bond market blows up and they say, well, that's an existential threat. We can't pay big money on our bonds, so we're going to start buying them. I mean,
got to do yield curve control.
I mean, Danny, that's going to happen. Okay. That is going to happen. That has to happen. Mathematically, that literally has to happen. And I know it. I believe it. Most sound money people know it and believe it. But I think the average person doesn't believe it and won't believe it until it actually happens. But when it happens, they'll wake up and they'll believe it and they'll go, holy shit, this guy was right. It'll happen. And at that point in time, money supply is going to explode again. And we're right back to, where we are. So, I mean, I laid this all out in the book. And so it just, I mean, it's interesting to me. The book's done pretty well. I've sold 50,000 copies, which people tell me that's great. I think it sucks. Why do I think it sucks? Because there are hundreds of millions of people out there. And it's kind of like, hey, you guys, you all need to know this. And so, we really got this, we really got to get it to go viral, because if you want to protect yourself from this thing, which seems to be a very high mathematical probability, the only way to do it is to fully understand it. Something will surprise us too. Something will happen that we couldn't even foresee, and we'll get there that way. I mean, who could have foreseen COVID, right? But
exactly.
The math is, I keep coming back to, the math is what it is. And so how are you going to resolve it with this mathematical problem? It's just too hard to solve any other way.
Lawrence Lepard's thesis isn't built on ideology. It's built on arithmetic. Deficits compound, debt grows, interest expenses rise. Governments respond the only way they can, by debasing currency. That doesn't mean timing is easy. It doesn't mean volatility disappears. It means outcomes are constrained. The system has fewer exits than people think.